When I'm editing a video, basically every single graphic will have motion tracking applied to it. When graphics are put in with no motion tracking, it can look really cheap and feel kind of amateur. So I always make sure to add it. But depending on the scene, if you use the wrong method of adding it in, it can end up taking a really long time. So in this video, I'll be showing you 3 different methods of adding motion tracking to your graphics so that you can pick the best one depending on your situation. My name is Editor Andrew. I edit for Will Tennyson. 9 days ago, I edited this video and it's up to 2.6 million views. And all the videos I have edited combined have 121.77 million views. Now you might be thinking, well, hey, if you're such a good editor, how come this video that you're watching now doesn't really have the best editing? Well, these are meant to be educational, not entertaining. So I don't think it really makes sense to go crazy with the editing, especially because the main point is just to solve your problem, and that's really where the value comes from. So I don't think I need to add a whole bunch of crazy effects or music or anything to accomplish that. And second of all, I spend the vast majority of my time actually editing for my clients. So I don't have a ton of time to edit these and make them perfect if I want to produce a video more than once every like 7 months. Okay, so first I'll be talking about how to add motion tracking just in the most simple way right in Premiere Pro. So let's get into that. So for example, I'll be looking at this clip where we have this American Psycho shirt and we want to track it like onto Will basically.
Bale, American Psycho kind of thing.
Right, so we need this shirt to be motion tracked to him. So I'm just gonna go in here. So here's how it looks without any of the motion tracking.
Bale, American Psycho kind of thing.
Like it looks very stiff and obvious that it's just like an image. Doesn't really look realistic at all. And so the easiest way to add motion tracking is literally go every 5 frames or so and adjust the position yourself. And I like to add a transform effect. So I'll just go to the effects tab and search it up. I also really like this plugin called Excalibur. And you can just search in the effects there and add them a lot faster. And I'm also going to turn off this transform so I can just see it a little better. And now when I play it, it still will not be tracked at all.
Bale, American Psycho kind of thing.
And one thing I like to do is zoom way in on where it needs to be kind of like perfect, and then just start adding the keyframes. So you click this stopwatch here to add the keyframe, and then I'll just hold shift and press the right arrow to go 5 frames over. And now I'll just adjust it down to match kind of perfectly on his neck. You can just kind of see the before and after by toggling the clip on and off. And another thing that's pretty helpful if you're doing it this way is to turn down the opacity. So I'll just go and make it a bit lower so I can see his actual body and everything. Actually, I changed my mind. For this, I'm just going to have it normal, so that way if there's a little bit of his black shirt, I can make sure to hide that. Another 5 frames, I'll move over and just adjust the keyframes. And I'm just going to keep going through and do this for every kind of set of 5 frames or so. And I'm just trying to keep the collar kind of perfectly centered on his neck. And now it's into the next clip, so I'm just going to go back and make sure it is perfectly centered on the last frame of the clip. And I'll just add back in that sort of fade in at the beginning, maybe make it shorter, like 5 frames or so. And then let's go back and see how that looks.
Christian Bale, American Psycho kind of thing.
And I like to add in a transform effect because that way you have the option of adding in motion blur later. If you just uncheck this use composition shutter angle option and change the shutter angle to like 180 or even 360. And it might not have enough movement in this clip to add motion blur, but let's just see.
Christian Bale, American Psycho kind of thing.
Yeah, not really. But just for reference, that can be useful later on. Okay, so this works. It's not perfect. As you can see, it still kind of jumps around a little bit too much. It doesn't match the frame perfectly. To make it better, you could go in even smaller increments of like 1 or 2 frames, but you can already see kind of the downside of using this method, and that's that it takes a long time to manually enter in every single keyframe. And that's really only useful if you have a really short clip and just need it to look good enough for like half a second or something like that. Because with the next way we'll talk about, you do get more perfect motion tracking, but there's a little bit more of a setup to it. And that setup will involve going into After Effects. So if you don't have After Effects or don't want to use After Effects, this is also how you can do it. All right, so now I'm going to move on to that example I've kind of been alluding to so far, which is using After Effects for the motion tracking. And here's the example kind of clip we'll be replicating.
Remember what we're playing for here. $4,000. It's 1,000 each, 500 each for you guys, because instantly half goes to your wife, right? Is that how that works?
Probably the whole thing.
So as you can see, the $4,000 tracks to his head. And so we're going to do that in After Effects. And the way I like to do it is to make a selection of just the clip that needs the effect, and then export that small selection and bring it in as like a new video into After Effects instead of using the built-in dynamic link, because I don't really trust it that much. I've had it before where it looks like it's working fine, and then I go to export the video and it stops working. So now I just like to do it this way. And I usually like to call it like background and then whatever the effect is. So I'll just call it 4,000 overhead. And I just use the match source preset.
$4,000. It's 1,000 each, 500 each for you guys, because.
All right, and then once it's exported, I go ahead and create a folder. So I like to have it set up for my whole project folder. Within that is a folder called resources. And this is where I put images, clips, music, sound effects, anything extra besides kind of the main shots. I have a folder called VFX, and then I make a folder within the VFX folder of whatever the effect I'm making is. And then within that, I make a project folder. And then in there, I like to put in just a blank After Effects file. Just name it the same as the folder, which is basically the name of this specific effect. And then put the background in there as well. And then open it up in After Effects. All right, once After Effects is open, I'll just drag the video file in and then drag it down to the timeline to make a new composition with the same resolution and frame rate and all that. So I don't have to like think about that really. I also like to rename the composition as not having the background in the title. Okay, with all that kind of like setup stuff out of the way, now we're going to do the actual motion tracking. So to do that, you just need to click on the clip. You need to go to the tracker panel, which isn't visible for me right now for some reason. So I'm going to go to Window and then Tracker. It should show up over here. And then with that layer selected, you click on Track Motion. And this will create a new motion tracker if you click this drop down. And this one will just be Tracker 1. So every time you click this, it'll just make another one. And if you have some you aren't using, you can just delete them by highlighting them and clicking the delete key. Pretty straightforward. But once you click that, it will pop up this other window with a track point. And the way that this works is whatever is in the middle box is like the object you're tracking, the kind of pixels that it's looking for. And the outer box is where it's looking for them. So I'm going to drag it over to Will's face. Make it a little bit bigger. And it is tricky because the bigger you make this, the slower it's going to be. So you don't want to make it too big if you can help it. I'm actually going to make sure the resolution is right because it looked very pixelated. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And then all you have to do is press this arrow right here that says Analyze Forward and just watch it to make sure it's working properly. And if it ever isn't working right, you can press the spacebar to stop it. You go down to the drop downs here for the track points, and then you can just go back however far you need to. So like, let's say here is where it messed up. You can just delete all those keyframes, adjust it to the right place. So maybe I'll like center it a little better. And then you click the Analyze Forward button again, and it'll just pick back up. See there, for example, it kind of like jumped around quite a bit with his eyes moving. There to there. It's not centered at all anymore. So I'm going to go here, just delete these keyframes to be safe, and then re-center it and start tracking again. All right, and now it's gone through the entire clip. So I'm just going to play it back just to make sure it looks pretty good.
$4,000.
So I'll just scroll through and see that it's not messing up as far as I can tell anywhere. And it'll be more obvious once we actually add something to be tracked. And the way we do that is we want to make a null object. So we go over here in the timeline, right click, new, null object. And this is what we're going to put this tracked motion data onto. So then we can then apply it to however many objects we want. And it's very simple that the motion is just in this null object. So we know that's kind of like separate from any other movement or position we have going on. It's just kind of an easier way to keep it all organized, in my opinion. And the way we add it to the null object is we're in the tracker, we make sure we're on that tracker 1, that first one we made. So if you make extras, just make sure you're on the same one that you have all this keyframe information saved in. So for us, it's tracker 1. We click edit target, and then just make sure it's the layer null 1, because that's where we want to add the keyframes to. Click OK, and then click apply. X and Y is always fine, and then just click OK. And now anything we add, we can go ahead and close that. We can parent it to this null object, and it'll get the motion. So I'll just add some text. It's $4,000. I like the font Stoll's bold. I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger. Center it. Let's make it green. And we'll add a thick black stroke. We want to make sure it's all fills over all strokes so that it appears correct. And now the way to get the motion on the 4,000, because we can see it's just standing still right now, is you click the drop down, null 1, and then if we hit play, it should be motion tracked.
$4,000. It's 1,000 each, 500 each.
And we did see it kind of like jumped right there, it looks like. And that's where we corrected it ourselves to center it on his face a little better. So if you want to adjust that, you can just go to the keyframes here and kind of smooth it out a bit. So I might just even delete the keyframe in between them so it's a more smooth motion.
1,000 each.
Maybe 1 or 2 more keyframes.
1,000 each, 500.
Yeah, I think that looks smooth enough for what most people will be happy with. And then the final thing that I always like to do is click this sort of 3 circles thing, and that'll add motion blur to it, which will look even better.
$4,000. It's 1,000 each, 500 each for you guys, because.
And you can make the motion blur even more aggressive by going to composition settings, advanced, and increasing the shutter angle. So I'll just make it 360, and then we'll just play that and see what it looks like.
$4,000. It's 1,000 each, 500 each for you guys, because
Okay, so it's still pretty subtle, but I mean, it's not really moving that fast, so that's fine. And another thing is you can just add some glow to it. And this simple, straightforward way is just copy the layer, add a little Gaussian blur, and a Luma key, so you're not using the darker colors. Crank it up a little bit. There we go. Turn off repeat edge pixels, and then just play with the values until it looks nice. And then I usually adjust the opacity to make it look just perfect.
$4,000. It's 1,000 each.
And then the reason we have it in the null layer is what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to actually take the position of the glow and parent it to the 4,000 real quick. You can ignore all the glow stuff if you want, but what we're going to do to make it kind of fly up and appear out of nowhere is keyframe the position over the course of 5 frames to start really low and then fly into place. And I parented it to the wrong thing, so I'm just going to fix that real quick on the glow. And now when we play it back, it's using the position keyframes here, and it's also using the motion tracked position keyframes from the null object. So let's see how that looks.
$4,000.
Looks pretty good. And I'll also just make the transparency kind of do the same thing. Go from like 0 to 100 and make sure the glow matches the transparency of its parent, this text here. Actually, the glow needs to not do that because it's supposed to be stuck at 54. Or we'll just make it 50. We'll just add the keyframes ourselves. 50 there, and 0 here. All right, and now let's see how that looks.
$4,000. It's 1,000 each, 500 each for you guys, because 4,000.
All right, and now it looks good. So we can go ahead and export it by going to File, Export. I like to add it to the Media Encoder queue. I just like using Media Encoder to kind of keep track of everything. It's easier to adjust your settings, in my opinion. And then I always use QuickTime ProRes 422 for graphics if there's no transparency. If there is transparency, you're going to want to use 4444 with alpha, because that way the transparent pixels will actually show up as transparent and not solid black. Then I'll just run that. All right, it's done. So I'm just going to take it from my downloads folder and put it in this folder I have in every project called VFX Exports. And that way I can just drag it right into my Premiere Pro project. Like this. And like this. And I just leave the audio off when I do it like that. And so now you can see that VFX is good to go.
Remember what we're playing for here. $4,000. It's 1,000 each, 500 each for you guys, because instantly half.
We'll just compare it to the first one I made.
$4,000. It's 1,000 each.
Yeah, it's basically the same. Maybe the motion blur is a little more blurry and maybe it moves a little faster, but it's pretty much the same. So that's how you do the motion tracking with the track points in After Effects. And I like doing it that way sometimes because it's very automatic. You just set it, that track point at the beginning, and let it play. It's really easy to add the motion blur. It's really accurate. Every frame will have a keyframe. And you can even do rotation and scale kind of tracking too, which I'll show you how to do that right now. So here is a clip that I'll be using as an example.
So if you want to try out the Macro Factor app, go to the Google Play Store or App Store and use code WILL for a 2-week free trial.
And here you can kind of see the table is moving a little bit, but the graphic is staying level with the table. So even though the camera is a little bit shaky and tilting, the graphic stays in line with that rotation. So like I always like to do, I am going to select just the part that needs the graphic, and I'll just turn it off for now. And then I'll export that as its own small clip. Background. Demo. And I like to keep it on just match source. Downloads. And while it's loading, I'll just go ahead and make the sort of subfolder. So in Resources, VFX, Macro Factor Add Demo. I'll make the new project, and I'll paste in the asset, which is the blank template. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to drag in the background, turn it into a composition, just rename the composition so I don't get confused later. All right, and I'm also going to bring in that graphic that we're going to use. All right, so I have it here, just going to drag it in, and I'll drag it in on top. And I'll just turn off the visibility for now. So when we're tracking the rotation, we need to find two small, distinct kind of shapes or colors that are nice and far apart. So that way, even the smallest change will be picked up as a small change in rotation. To add it, we do the same thing. We go to the tracker panel with the layer we want selected, track motion. It'll bring up the second screen, and then we just need to check the rotation box, and that'll give us 2 track points. So I think for the first one, I'll just move it to the corner of this wall here, because that's kind of like a distinct shape. And I'll just make it a little bit bigger so it knows it's a corner. And I'll do the same thing over here, maybe on this corner because it's far away. Actually, I'll use the hinge over here because that's a very kind of high contrast shape. It's a bit annoying to move it over so far. All right, now that they're all good to go, if you press Shift question mark, you can kind of center the view. And now I'm going to click the arrow to analyze forward and hope that they stay on their correct spots. So I'm just going to zoom in to double check. Yeah, looks like they did. So now I'm going to add a null object to apply all the motion data to. I'm going to go back to the layer with the actual trackers on it. Make sure the right ones are selected. Tracker 1, that's the only one that should be in there. Yep, tracker 1. And if you want to see all the keyframes, you can further expand these to check them out, that it is the one that you want. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to go to Edit Target, make it the null, click OK. And as long as this rotation is checked, I should be good to go and just press Apply. And now all the rotation and position keyframes are in this null object. So next, I can parent that null with the text.
Go to the Google Play Store or
Make it visible again.
App Store
And now you can
use
see
code WILL.
It's like twisting a tiny bit. It's a little hard to see, but it should be perfectly level with the table. And just to make it even more obvious, I'll move this up a little bit and move it to the table and press
Go
play.
to the Google Play Store or App Store and use code WILL for a 2-week free trial.
And you can see it's moving. All right, and then I'll just scale it down a bit. And I'll make it sort of fly in from below by adding these keyframes with the position where it starts down low and moves up, and I'll add the motion blur to it. And I'll do the same thing with the opacity. I'll make it start at 0 and then go to 100%. And now it'll fly in and stay in the same position as everything else happening in the shot.
Go to the Google Play Store or App Store and use code WILL for a 2-week free trial.
So yeah, that's how you can use the rotation, and now I'll quickly go over how you can do it with the scale as well. All right, and here's a good example of a clip where this happens. So I'll just let you watch it, and you'll see that the phone stays in the same scale as the couch and everything else, because it's zooming in on Will, and the phone is getting zoomed into as well. So again, it's the same process. I'll just make a selection for just that clip I want, export it as its own sort of background. Keep it on the match source preset. And I'll get that going. And in the meantime, I'm going to set up our VFX folder. All right, and once it's done exporting, I'll drag it into the After Effects project I got going on here. Make a new composition, rename this so I don't get confused. And then same thing, we're going to click the layer we want, track motion, make sure scale is also selected. And again, it's going to ask us to find 2 track points. So I'm just going to use these dots on the couch as my track points. So there's one over here on the right I'm going to pick. Just got to zoom way in until the cursor turns into those 4 arrows so you can actually move it. Yeah, and I think this kind of dot looks good. So I'm just going to make it way bigger and center it on that. And then I'll do the same thing on the left here. And I will usually put this window on a second monitor just so it's easier to zoom in and see everything. But for a tutorial, it'd be a little bit hard to see. All right, and once they're set where I want them, I'm just going to track it forward. Hope his hand doesn't cross over them because that might mess up the tracking. And it looks like it didn't. If that did happen, I would just pick something else, like probably the corners of the wall. but I'm just watching through. It looks like it's working so far. All right, and that's done. It looked to me like it was pretty good. So I'm going to make that new null object, go back to my layer with the tracking on it, press edit target, make sure it's set to null. Okay, apply. Okay. And now it has both the position and scale keyframes. So when I drag in that phone graphic, it'll zoom in just like the camera is zooming in on Will. So let me just find that graphic real quick. All right, here it is. Just going to drag it in, put it on top. I can close the tracking view right there. And I'm just going to put this in the right kind of scale and position and everything. Maybe like that. Make it a little bit angled. So it's interesting. Okay. And then parent it to the null object. And like always, I like to kind of have it fly in from the side. So I'm just going to keyframe the positions here. Add a bit of motion blur, make it start off screen. And let's see how that looks.
So I found this viral video online called How to Change Eye Color Naturally.
And it's getting a little laggy with the loading, so I'm just going to play it again when it's fully rendered.
So I found this viral video online called How to Change Eye Color Naturally, and based off the comments, this thing works. So I found this viral.
All right, and that looks pretty good. It's kind of like it's in the room with him. I would probably change it to have his hand go on top of the phone, but I'll save that for another tutorial later about masking and rotoscoping and all that kind of stuff. Next, I want to quickly show you how you can also, in After Effects, stabilize the motion. So it's very similar to motion tracking, but what if instead of like tracking the movement of something, you want that thing to stay in place and everything else kind of move around it. So I'll show you a great example of that right now. And that is this clip of these Maasai jumpers. And so I'll just let you see what it looks like when it's done.
There's a long-standing belief that this kind of impact can actually make you taller.
So you see it's kind of cool because he's jumping, but his head is like staying in the exact same position. So again, this is the original clip here.
There's a long-standing belief that this kind of impact can actually make you taller.
And I'll show you how to stabilize it. So first, I'm just going to export, like always, the background, which is just the original clip before any motion tracking has been applied. And I always use the match source preset. And then while it's loading, I'll go ahead and set up the VFX folder. All right, the export is done, so I'm going to drag in the background, open up the After Effects file, drag in the background to the After Effects file, make it a composition, rename it so I don't get confused. All right, and this time we're actually going to do something different. Instead of doing track motion, we're going to click stabilize motion. But this works the exact same way. So I'm just going to drag this back to where it was the first time. Okay, and I'm going to move the tracker to his face, and I'm going to make sure it at least kind of covers his eyes. That's what I usually look to do when I'm tracking a face, is make sure I get the eyes, or at least one eye. And I'm just going to track this forward and see what happens. And it's not really tracking him at all. And I believe it's because he's moving way too fast for that small bounding box. So I'm going to go into the tracker. I'm going to delete all the keyframes, and then I'm just going to make this search area and the object I'm looking for much bigger. So I'm going to look for his whole face, and I'm going to make the search area huge. And let this render. And this is probably going to be a lot slower than the other times. I'll obviously speed up the footage, but that's kind of the problem with this method. If you need to track something bigger that's moving a lot, especially on like 4K footage, it's going to take a long ass time for the program to keep track of it and scan all those pixels. So I'm just going to pull out my phone here and see how long it takes to do a single frame. So I'm going to wait till it goes to the next frame and then start the timer. There we go. It just started. And I'll stop it when this frame finishes. All right, and that took 9 seconds. So yeah, and this clip is 9 seconds long. So that means it's going to take 9 seconds times 9 times 30, which is about 40 minutes. So I will be back when this is done. But before I do that, let me just see if I can get away with shrinking this binding box and see if I can get it to work a little faster, since it doesn't have to scan all the pixels. Yeah, so now it's taking about 4 seconds a frame. So that doubled the speed, but it's still going to take a while. So I'll be back in a bit. All right, that's finally done. And so now all I need to do to stabilize his motion is make sure the clip is selected and then just click apply.
There's a long-standing belief that this kind of...
If we look on the main screen, we can see his head is going to stay in the exact same spot. So yeah, that worked great. The only thing is you'll want to scale it up and move it over a bit so he's actually in the center of the screen still.
There's a long-standing belief that this kind of impact can actually make you taller.
It's still getting cropped a bit, so I'm just going to zoom in even more.
There's a long-standing belief that this kind of impact can actually make you taller.
So yeah, that is how you can stabilize the motion. So yeah, as you saw, that took a very long time to track something more than just a couple pixels wide. And that's kind of one of the downsides of using After Effects for motion tracking. You need a really small, distinct object or two if you're doing scale or rotation. A lot of the times it messes up and you have to manually fix each frame. And yeah, it's just really slow if you're tracking something bigger. So next, I'm going to show you how you can do it in Premiere Pro. It's faster than the first way I showed you, and it doesn't have any of the downsides of tracking larger objects like I just saw in After Effects. And this is going to be using my plugin. It is a paid plugin, but since it's pretty new, if you're one of the first 20 people to sign up, you get it for free. Just use code FIRST20 on the checkout page. All right, so for this example, I have this clip of Will here, and we're going to track some motion to his face. So to do that, I just select the clip, go to the ellipse mask tool, draw a circle around his head, click this button to track the motion forward. That's done. And then now I go to the Mask Motion Copy plugin page, scan for unassigned masks. It finds just this one in the list that starts at 36 seconds and 17 frames. That's the one we want. It has this ID 1032. So I'm just going to pick it from the dropdown. I'm going to add what I want the motion to be applied to. So I'll just put like a name tag. And then I'll move it to his face. And then click the button that says Add Transform from Selected Mask, and then watch it play. And there we go. It's tracked the motion right to him. If we want to stabilize the motion instead, then we just check this Invert Keyframes Stabilize Motion button. Click Add Transform. And now when I play it, you can see his head is staying perfectly still and everything else is moving around him. And just to make that a little nicer to watch, I'm going to zoom it in a little bit and center his head more in the center of the frame. And now when I play it, still needs a little bit more room. But yeah, now when I play it, it'll be stabilized. So yeah, if you'd like to check that out for free, it's free for the first 20 users. Link is in the description. I hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.